Okay, in today's video, we're going to very quickly look at the difference between afraid of and afraid to. So, if we look at, for example, let's look at the idea of fear very quickly. So with fear, we can express it in different ways. We can say, I'm afraid, I'm scared, I am frightened, and I am petrified. There's probably more ways, but we're just going to look at these four very quickly for now. So what's the difference between afraid, scared, frightened, and petrified? Well, petrified is you're so scared. Everything's in the present right now. You're so scared, you turn to stone. You no longer fear anything. Your brain turned off. You're there, but you're not there. You're petrified. Frightened, it's one step below. So this is where when we say I watched a movie, I got a fright. You know, one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, Fright Night. Not the remake, the original. Because I'm old as fuck, kids. So a fright is that jump you get. So frightened is when we are in that state for a period of time, but it can never be a long period of time because that feeling, it is ephemeral, it is fleeting. You know, it comes and goes like happiness. Frightened as well can't sustain forever. Scared is one level below that. You know, we're able to communicate, to articulate, but it is still very objective, very visceral. It's right now. It's maybe because of thunder or lightning or a movie or it maybe even what's going to happen tomorrow. But it's more physiological. The fear, it's adrenaline in your body, cortisol in your body, and your stomach is twisting and turning. You're scared. So what is afraid? Afraid is more abstract. Afraid is how we talk about the things that probably aren't real, the things that scare us, yeah, about the future, but that they're not concrete or they're not real, they're not here right now. So I would say like the difference between scared and afraid. Scared is more like watching a Clive Barker movie from the 80s. And afraid is more like watching a Stephen King movie. Stephen King movies don't really have jumps or frights at all. They're psychological. It's a different type of fear. They're very subtle and prolonged. Whereas Clive Barker movie is full of gore, like violence and gore and creatures that come out of boxes and commit atrocities in a gorgeously strange way. So what we want to look at really quickly here is just this. How we articulate the reason we don't do things in our life. So with afraid of, we're going to use a gerund. With afraid to, we're going to use the infinitive. And so what's the difference? Well, one of these is just a verb. The other one is the monster under the bed, the reason we don't do the verb. So one of them, in both cases, they're both going to be over here, gerunds. We know we're going to say I is my subject, am is the verb, and afraid is going to be our object. And we know, we do, anything outside of the verb, anything on this side of the window, if it's an action and it's a part of the main clause, it's going to be an infinitive or a gerund. So it's either going to be to do something or doing something. And so in this case, to and the gerund, ing, they have different meanings, kind of. So in one case, let's say this is me and this is you. Let me draw you how you look like to me, because you're a camera. This is me and this is you. And this is here, the verb. It's just an action. It's just something silly. When I look at that action, instantly, in my abstract mind, all I can see is the giant monster. The consequence that will be terrible, horrible, fucking despicable. Guaranteed when I do this thing. You look at that same verb for me and say, what do you want about? If you do that thing, it's going to have a fantastic result. It's going to be amazing. You're crazy not to do that thing. So we want to know, well, which one is just the verb And which one is the monster? The consequence, the outcome of that verb, the reason we don't do the verb in the first place. Well, let's say, in this situation, we'll say, I'm afraid to promote my novels. I'm getting some personal shit here. So then we'll say, I'm afraid of being told I suck. So one of these, once again, is just a verb. That's to promote. So if I say I'm afraid to promote my novels, you say, why? What the fuck, man? Why don't you do that? Well, because the monster, the consequence I see that this consequence is guaranteed, is the scariest thing possible. I'm afraid of being told I suck. Or like, as most people, we're afraid of being the reason we don't do anything. And this is like an underlying psychological thread for everything we're scared of. I'm afraid of being humiliated. It's true. Beneath everything, essentially, the fear of failure and all those things. Failing's fine by yourself, but when other people see it, it's fucking terrible. So this consequence is always going to be ing. It's always going to be, I'm afraid of doing this. I'm afraid of something happening. I'm afraid of being humiliated. I'm afraid of maybe, failing. I'm afraid of losing my money, whatever it might be. So the verb itself, I'm afraid to, what would be a thing? I'm afraid to hold your little baby. You say, hey, Ken, do you want to hold my baby? And I say, no fucking way. You say, oh, but why? I say, look, I'm afraid to hold your baby. And they're like, what? Why would you want to be afraid to hold my baby? I said, well, logically, I'm afraid of dropping it. Yeah, just hold it for a second, it falls to the floor. I don't want to be responsible for your child slipping down a few IQ points. No, thank you. So this thing is more than likely never going to happen. We're always, these consequences never happen, in fact. More often, we hold the baby giggles and googles, and we give the baby back, and everything is fine. The baby drops a few IQ points because mom and dad. In this case, we promote our novel, our new novel. My first one's 10 years old. This book is 10 years old this year. I don't know what that means. It's 10 years old. Buy it. I'm afraid to promote my novels. It's just a novel, but more than likely we promote the novel. Buy my book. And don't. You steal it, it's free. And in the end, people say both good and bad things. That some people have good experiences with it and some people have shitty experiences with it. It doesn't matter. More often, this monster never rears its ugly head, ever. Hardly ever. So, let's look at some conditions. We'll say, for example, do I have any grammar books open here? I do. We got a grammar book here. Let's look at here, because it's one I wanted to do. Where is it? So I would say here, I thought she would, let me move this down so you can, be angry if I told her what had happened. So we say, what were we afraid to do? I was afraid. And two, once again, it's just a verb. I was afraid to tell her. There's nothing wrong with telling someone something. It's just communication. Communication is not scary. But we don't tell anyone anything, do we? Because we're in our head, we imagine the worst possible consequence. And we play it over and over and over like a shitty fucking reel on fucking Instagram or the worst fucking movie whatsoever. We are the worst directors of our own potential and our own future. Terrible writers too. So I was afraid to tell her. Why? And so here we'll say, well, I was afraid of. And so what we want to do, we want to take this. So what do we have? Where's our clause? Let's ignore these first two words, I thought. Let's ignore them. Let's say this is really the crux or the main guts of the sentence. She would be angry. That's my 1, 2, 3. My subject, my verb, and my object. So would be is theoretical environment. We're allowed to do thought experiments in our heads. And of course, angry is my object. If I come in here, we have our 1. She would be angry. 1, 2, 3. All right, so I can't say I was afraid of she would be angry. I can't do that. Why? Well, because she is a subject, and I already have a subject here. Would be is a verb here, but I already have a verb in my sentence. And angry is fine. There's no reason that angry is fine. Why? Because, well, angry is an object. And yeah, we want only objects right now. So that's fine. Afraid and angry. So what do I do here? Well, we know if I want this verb, which is would be, to become an object. I mentioned this in another video, but you don't watch my videos, so I'll explain it again. Verbs are like water. They're always in motion. They're in the future, the past, the present, the perfect. They're always in motion. When we want to talk about a verb as an object, we have to turn it into something tangible. So we turn water into ice, gelo. So as ice, to do that, you need either the gerund, ing, or the infinitive. Now, what's important as a verb, time affects everything. A verb is always in the present, the past, the future, or the perfect. Always. Or it is affected by modals. I should, I could, I have to, I had better, I can't, I get to, I will, I'm going to. Those modals, it's not that some are the future and some are obligation. All of them reflect how we feel about the verb in the present, but about the idea of the future. And so once again, those models, they're all emotion. They're like colors of paint. They reflect how you feel. Can't, get to, have, had better, all of these ones. They reflect how you feel. And they help the other person you're talking to feel the same way you do about whatever the fuck you're talking about. But they're all dependent on time. Well, here, over this side, as objects, time does not exist. So this would, well, fuck it. We don't need it. We don't want it. We don't care about it. It doesn't belong as an object. So would shouldn't be there. But we know this verb be has to transform. So now we have an object. But she is not an object. She is a subject. So what happens when we take she as a subject and we make she an object? Yes, she's an object. Well, she becomes her. Shit. Her. Better. Now, this 1, 2, 3 becomes all an object. I was afraid of her being angry. He or they won't know what to do. Maybe that's my fear. I was afraid of, all right, so how do we turn all of that into an object? Well, they is a subject, it's the yellow. As an object, it becomes blue, which is them. Won't know, what's won't short for? Will not, of course. So will, we don't care for. So this we change into not knowing, and then the rest is fine. What to do? Incredible. The monster will eat me. Yeah, that's essentially our fear. So I was afraid of what? So turn this subject into an object because we're naming it the monster. Nothing changes. Only pronouns change. He, him, they, them, she, her, I, me, we, us. Ooh, nice save. Pronouns change. Names don't. Kian, Kian. John, John. Mary, Mary. Fulano, Fulano. So I was afraid of the monster eating me. And that's it. So now this 1, 2, 3. Dois, três just becomes one giant object. Isn't that beautiful? Now, if I want to, I can say, I was afraid that the monster. And so I can't say will. Why? Because it's reported speech. I'm telling you what I was thinking a minute ago. So this verb has to go one step backwards. Yeah, I can do that. And in this case, what do you have? You have 1, 2, can't let them see. 2, 3. Then we have our conjunction here that links two sentences. And then we have 1, scheither, 2, and the object is 3. So a simpler sentence is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Actually, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Whereas here, it's just 1, 2, 3. But our object is quite big. And again, for example, it would be, I was afraid of her arriving late. I was afraid of me making a mistake and not having the care or the consideration, but most certainly the technical skill to edit it out. That's it. What was the point of this video? There had to be a point. The point of this video is there's two ways we look at fear. One way I look at fear is, well, when we articulate or we talk about the abstract fear. Like, why don't you do that verb? Verbs are just verbs. Life is easy, but we're all scared to fucking death. And the older you get, the more experienced you are. It's like learning chess, you know, like when you're young and impulsive, life is like playing damas, like playing drafts. You know, you can only think one move in advance. Everything's just one angle. Everything's on a fucking triangle, and every piece goes in the same direction. There's no complication to it. Then as you get older, like into your mid-20s, you know, it goes from drafts to chess. And you're about 25 or 26, and all of a sudden you can think one move ahead. You know what? You're too busy trying to remember the way each piece moves, because now they're all different pieces and they all move in different ways. You're struggling so much just to remember that you can't possibly envision like anything more than just what that piece can do. And you're reactive. You wait until someone else moves their piece, and then you move your piece. Then you wait till they move their piece and you move your piece. You are reactive. Just like when you're 24 in life, you wait until your boss tells you what to do and you do what he tells you to do. You sit and wait for life to come to you and you react to life. You don't go looking for things because, well, you weren't educated how to do that. From the age of 6 years old in your classroom, you only put up your hand when your teacher said, what's the answer to 1 and 1? You know, your teacher educated you that curiosity killed the cat. You know, asking questions that the teacher didn't ask you is rude and insolent. And so the student who got all the shiny stars is the one that kept their fucking mouth shut until the teacher asked for the answer that they knew. What's 1 and 1? She knows the answers too. Why the fuck is she asking you? But she's asking you. And then after all those years, all you know how to do is react. To react to when someone needs something of you, then you politely give them exactly what they need. But if no one needs anything, you sit there and you wait. And so when we first played chess and when we were 20s, that's what we are. We just react to life. Life is happening to us and we're a poor victim in this whole scenario. And the more you play the game of chess, you go from thinking one move in advance, which is, well, if I do this, something good could happen or something bad could happen, to being able to think 3, 4, 5, 6 moves in advance. Until, unfortunately, sometimes you've been playing this chess game of life so much that you can think 7, 8, 9 moves in advance. And in your head, they're all of them, in each of those moves, you get fucked. And so you become paralyzed by the weight of consequence. When other people are going, just fucking move one piece forward. You can't do something simple and primitive like a child. So sometimes, yes, in life, we need to play chess in the same way a child plays drafts. Sometimes we need to play chess in the same way a child plays fucking dominoes and just kick the fucking pieces over or break the table. But either way, we're afraid to do things. They're just things. They're never scary verbs, ever. Because we're afraid of the ing. Everyone is afraid of gerunds. Fuck gerunds. Gerunds are evil monsters that are trying to eat us alive. Because we're afraid of things happening to us. That's it. We're not afraid of, for example, when objects don't scare us, I'm afraid of spiders. No, spiders don't fucking scare you. No way. So I'm afraid of pulling on my socks and feeling something small and tingly crawl over my foot and between my toes and bite me. Yeah, that's what we're afraid of. We're not afraid of spiders. That means nothing. We're afraid of what they do. I'm afraid of pulling on my socks and then feeling something small and tingly crawl over my foot and between my legs. Bite me. Yeah, that's what scares us. We're scared of things happening to us. We're scared of verbs. We're not scared of objects at all. An object is just an object. It's sitting still. It doesn't do anything. It's the picture that plays out in our mind. That's what scares us to death. And that is the purpose of this video, and I think we got this one done in less than 25 minutes. As always, love the people who love you. Holy shit, my battery's running out. Love the people that love you. Everyone else is just a piece of shit. It was a long time between videos because I'm writing a book and I'm teaching 13 or 14 classes per day, 6 days per week, and I'm raising 2 kids, 2 little monsters by myself, and somewhere in the midst of it, I'm teaching myself how to paint, running, practicing yoga, lifting heavy weights, and some other stuff. So the videos are not on my most important list, but I still come back to them because I like to help you. I don't know who the fuck you are, but I like to help you. So yes, love everyone that loves you. Everyone else is a piece of shit. I'll see you in a couple of months, maybe.